"They were berserkers," said Faye, as she and Kratos sat on the bed, each keeping a watchful eye on their son. "Deranged warriors who bathe in human blood and have no humanity. They are mortals, but the woman, she was different. Her strength was enhanced by magic. She will return." "But why would they want the boy?" Kratos asked. "They consume the flesh of their enemies. They must think that that they would gain his powers, your powers." Kratos snarled. "How could they know what I am?" Faye sighed. "One of the villagers, they must have realized. Some of these people live on gossip." For a second, Kratos was overcome with rage. How dare these people endanger his family? It confirmed what he had long suspected. He was not fit to be part of a community. "You must leave," said Kratos. "It is not safe for the boy when I am near him." His shoulders slouched as he stared at the ground. Faye took his face in her hands and turned it towards her own. "He needs you. He needs his father. We will leave. It was foolish of us to think we could live a normal life, to have neighbors, friends. We are better off alone." She took a deep breath. Kratos encircled her and their son in his arms. "You two," he said, "are all that matter. We need no one else. We will find a new home, far from the troubles of others." Faye stroked his face and nodded. She looked out of the window, and Kratos had the sense, as he had many times, that she was looking much further away than he ever could. Kratos and Faye packed everything of value they possessed into one leather bag. They were unconcerned by the loss of their house. They had built it themselves, and wood and stone could be found anywhere. Faye wrapped the baby into a blanket and tied him to her back, and with a mumbled goodbye and apology to the surviving villagers, they left their home. As the family cut and crushed a path through the forest, they were unaware that they were being watched. Berserkers peered down at them from the trees, hidden by their camouflage paint. They were hungry for more bloodshed, but their leader kept them in check with the promise that all would share in the powerful blood of the godchild. And so, they observed, and they waited. After several hours, Faye was able to relax and started to enjoy being in the presence of the old trees. Butterflies and birds hovered overhead, making her son laugh. Kratos found no such peace. He constantly scanned around them, his head jerking at any sign of movement. But no attack came, and they continued walking throughout the day. Faye guided them without a map of any kind. Kratos began to wonder where she led them. "You know this land," he said. "Do you have an idea of our destination?" "I'll know it when I see it," she replied. "Worry not, my love." Kratos grumbled, but did not question her. He trusted her with his life in all things. As the sun began to set, the family found themselves in a clearing, with a cliff on one side and a river with a waterfall on another. Easily defended, Kratos thought. "We will rest here tonight," he said. Faye nodded and began unwinding Atreus from her back. As she placed the baby on the ground, her ears pricked. She froze. "Kratos," she whispered. "It's a trap. They're here." Kratos continued unloading the bag as if he had not heard. "Where?" he asked. "The cliff," she muttered. She slowly reached her hand behind her back, towards her axe handle, as Kratos crouched down. "Ready?" he said. She nodded so that only he could see. With a cry, she pulled her axe from its sheath as Kratos leapt into the air, landing on top of the cliff and surprising their would-be ambushers. Many had arrows strung onto their bows and were unprepared for him. He wasted no time in knocking the bows aside and tearing the archers apart. In the same instant, painted people swarmed Faye from all sides. She stood with Atreus underneath her and swung her axe at any who dared come near. Blood spattered her tunic as the axe blade ripped open her enemies' bodies. Once Kratos had killed all those on the cliff, he dove down to help Faye. Together they pummeled the painted ones into the ground, until more of them appeared at the cliff top. Once again Kratos leapt up to face them, leaving Faye alone to defend their son. At the top of the waterfall, the braid-headed wild woman appeared. She flew into the air and span, landing on the riverbank. She strode towards Faye and screeched. The painted warriors parted to let her through. She walked towards the mother and her son. "I will have the child," she said. "I will have its power." "You'll have to kill me," Faye cried. The wild woman smirked. "As you wish." She drew 2 swords and thrust them towards Faye, who blocked both on her axe handle. They swung at each other, every blow intended to maim or decapitate. Faye was stronger, but the wild woman was faster. The painted people formed a circle and howled at the battling women. Kratos continued to beat back the attackers on the cliff. Out of the trees in the distance, arrows soared towards him. He blocked most with his shield, but some made it through, piercing his torso. He grimaced and broke the shafts, then grabbed nearby bodies and flung them in the direction of the hidden archers. As the bodies struck, the archers fell from the trees and fled, terrified lest more dead bodies were to be aimed at them. At the same time, Faye was struggling to hold her ground against the wild woman. The blows from the 2 swords were slightly nicking her skin, making the wild woman squeal with delight and show her tongue to Faye. Her eyes were manic. Faye took a deep breath. Her hands tingled, energy flowing from them and travelling up the axe handle. As the wild woman prepared to strike, the axe blade turned blue and ice formed on its edge. When Faye blocked the swords, both of their blades shattered, leaving the wild woman holding 2 useless handles. Faye roared and kicked the wild woman in the chest. She went down and Faye dove on her, placing her hands on the woman's head. She and the wild woman screamed in unison as Faye pulled and twisted. The screaming ceased as Faye ripped the wild woman's head from her shoulders. The severed head froze into an agonized expression. The surrounding painted people fell silent. Faye held up the head by its braids, her own face covered with blood, and bared her teeth. The painted people ran, and did not stop running until they collapsed, putting as much distance between themselves and the head ripper as they could. Kratos jumped off the cliff and joined his family. Faye tossed the head into the river, and without saying a word, they collected their possessions, picked up Atreus, and left the clearing. "You fought well," said Kratos, after the clearing was far behind them. "As did you," Faye replied. "The axe is a fine weapon. You still have not told me how you came to possess it." "That is a story for another day, my love. For now..." Faye paused. "What is it?" Kratos asked, as he scanned the closest trees. Faye did not answer. She walked to the nearest tree, a thick oak with pale bark, and placed her palm on it. "This is the place," she finally said. Kratos stood beside her and examined the tree. "How do you know?" She smiled at him. "I know, my dear Kratos. We will raise our son here."